welcome. Glad you're with us on this Wednesday, February 16th. Welcome to American Morning. I'm Kiran Chetry.
Yeah, it's a good morning to you all. I'm TJ Holmes. Let's tell you about this happening right now.
Privacy. This is clearly a very upsetting situation. At 8:10 Eastern, Judith, if you're wondering what Bunga Bunga Party means in this instant, it has been used to refer to the parties that the Prime Minister held that allegedly ended in sex. Well, she's being investigated for providing girls to the Prime Minister. I mean, we're showing it here, but it looks innocuous. It's just very easy to get.
That's
it actually could look like one of those makeup, you know, the mineral
That's exactly
powder
right.
vials.
That's exactly right. And that's 500 grams in there. Now, it takes 10 grams to trigger a psychotic episode in some people. Jay,
thanks. Well, this morning we're also getting a closer look at the Republican proposal to slash government spending by $61 billion. But like the president's budget plan that was out this week, it doesn't touch the biggest ticket items, including programs like Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, those so-called entitlement programs. Judd Gregg is a former Republican senator from New Hampshire and also a former chairman of the Senate Budget Committee. He also served on President Obama's Deficit Commission, which issued a plan to deal with those big issues. He's one of the people who sounded the alarm about addressing those costly programs, and he's in Manchester, New Hampshire this morning. Senator Gregg, great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Karen. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Well, we're glad to get your take on this. We have the president who laid out his blueprint. The GOP's plan, vastly different. They're calling for about $61 billion in cuts to domestic programs this year alone. When you know from experience having a front seat at this, vastly different plans, how do they come together? The entitlements, because that is going to be big, but $61 billion in domestic program cuts, that's the GOP, the House GOP proposal. I mean, isn't that in some ways at least much more significant in terms of cuts?
It is. It's a very significant discretion.
Saying that in a way is a non-starter and that they're really not tackling the issue of entitlement reform. Remind again.
Well, here's my. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, remind the viewers again watching what the commission recommended in tackling this and why this has to be on the table.
Let's try to put it in context. The president sent up.
Very passionate about this issue, as do a lot of other people. We'll see where it goes from here, but they say this is just the beginning, and maybe we will see some changes. Judd Gregg, former chairman of the Senate Budget Committee and the president's own Deficit Commission. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Karen.
TJ? Jay, thanks. Well, while thousands danced in Tahrir Square last Friday, the pictures beamed across the world of Egyptians celebrating the resignation of President Hosni Mubarak. A barbaric attack was unfolding. CBS News correspondent, in both hostile and friendly environments, many attacks against them also do go unreported. Joining us to talk more about this is Judith, people on how to deal with these situations. Thanks for joining us this morning.
My pleasure.
I have to say, you also know Lara Logan. You guys have known each other for 20 years.
Right.
This was shocking to hear yesterday that this happened, especially knowing that she had been in this, been at some of the most dangerous parts of the uprising, flew back to Cooper as well, and many others attacked and heckled, harassed. But in this situation in particular, to talk about a sustained sexual assault happening on a reporter who was there, I mean, this is something that unfortunately you're much more vulnerable to as a female correspondent.
Yeah, I mean, it's an occupation.
I shouldn't have sent you know, a woman there anyway. I mean, this is dangerous stuff. And then if you're going to, you know, be subjected to, you know, potential, I mean, there are also legal ramifications to this, right? I mean, companies want to protect themselves, so they're fearful that they're not going to be sent out again to these stories.
Exactly, and it's interesting because just about a month
in this industry, and if you're a correspondent, if your job is that you're a foreign war correspondent, this is where you're going, and you're going into places that people are trying to flee. And so, you know, do you really have control of what you're getting yourself into?
You don't have control, but I think you...
If anything, you said there may be a positive side to this in terms of what, just transparency, and also what about the reaction? I mean, when she goes back to work, when others go back to work, I mean, how is this best handled?
I hope it's handled.
Because she talked, and this is really, it's eerie to see it now. This is what she said a couple of days before it happened, just talking about covering Cairo. She said, I feel in a sense of failure when she had to leave the story, come back to the U.S. Professionally, I feel like I failed because I didn't deliver. I take that responsibility very seriously. Fundamentally, it's in my blood to be there on the street, listening to people, doing the best reporting I can, and then we hear about this.
Yeah, I mean,
There's Judith Matloff, professor at Columbia Graduate School of Journalism. Thanks for joining me this morning. TJ? 39 minutes past the hour. What happened was an unthinkable lab mix-up. A woman from Ohio wanted to have a baby after 4 miscarriages and was implanted with the wrong embryo, an embryo that belonged to another couple. Carolyn Savage and her husband Sean decided to carry the baby to term and then hand it over little Logan to his genetic parents. And they've documented the entire ordeal. 35 weeks pregnant, and it was still, for many, you call it inconceivable. It's inconceivable that it would happen, but also the bravery it took for you guys to decide to do what you did. Encouraged, actually, by the fertility doctor, right, to terminate. When they had called you, they find out very early whether you're pregnant or not, and they just thought this has got to be too much for somebody to go. That was the phone call you received saying there has been a terrible mix-up. I mean, how does anybody, I mean, first of all, it's one of the worst nightmares is dealing with this infertility issue to begin with, the heartbreak of miscarriages, which you suffered, and just the grueling process, and then to know that this embryo took and to have it not be yours. I mean, just walk us through what that was like.
It was
issued about in vitro, essentially saying that it's not morally acceptable in the first place.
It hurt.
For joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Appreciate it.
45 minutes past the hour. We'll be right back.